Welcome to Company Spotlight with Chris Temple, editor and publisher of the National Investor. Now in his fifth decade in the industry, Chris prides himself on his ability to find compelling investment opportunities in companies of all kinds, usually before the crowd. As he stresses at the National Investor, you can get information anywhere, but from Chris you get knowledge. And it is that knowledge he first gets from his research into companies, often visiting projects all over North and South America that he is privileged to pass on. Now, to learn about today's company in the spotlight, here's Chris.
Welcome in, folks. I'm Chris Temple, editor and publisher of the National Investor, back here with you. And in the spotlight today is one of the better gold exploration plays you're going to find. It's Amex Exploration. You will find them on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AMX. And here in the US on the OTCQX, importantly, the symbol is AMXEF. And in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to bring on my friend Victor Vantore. He is the president and CEO of the company, and we're going to talk. They've got a few different exploration projects. We're going to stick to their main one when we get to that point. Now, a couple of preliminaries first. In the gold area especially, it's critically important that you understand two things. Number one, the gold market, and number two, the kinds of companies that you want to invest in, particularly if you're looking for long-term gains. Those are usually based on discovery. You know, there's a million seemingly little exploration companies out there. A handful of them are worthwhile, relatively speaking. The rest are not. And there's a lot of different boxes you want to check to be able to figure out which is in the former, which companies are in the former. And we're going to check some of those boxes today with Amex. On gold generally, you know, we're doing this in the last couple of days of July. And we've seen recently, as I said on a podcast a couple of weeks back, as this is recorded, that gold is back in my own favor again for a variety of reasons. Last summer, I authored a piece that was pretty catchy, got a lot of attention, entitled "This is Not Your Father's Gold Market," to explain how the gold market is very different today in 2021 than it was 40 years ago. It's an environment that incredibly a lot of gold gurus still seem to be in. All of the stuff you see from these guys, they're still fighting the inflation and related wars of the late 70s and early 80s and not understanding how things have changed today. So you got to be careful with a big picture. That said, I am much more constructive on gold now that we've seen a bottoming process slugged out after last summer's high at a little over 2,000 an ounce. I'm going to be imminently updating that piece. This is Not Your Father's Gold Market. If you're not on my list where you're going to get that automatically, just drop me a line. You see my email address on the screen and let me know. One of the things I talk about in there are the types of characteristics you want to look for in an exploration company. Long term, of course, the most spectacular gains generally are made not by buying gold itself, not by buying an established producing company, nothing wrong necessarily with either of those things, but by buying an exploration play that stands out from the crowd because of the size, because of the grades, because of new discoveries, whatever the case may be. And again, Amex checks a lot of those boxes. Right before I bring Victor on, you know the drill. Here is from Amex Exploration's own corporate presentation, their disclosure that Victor and or myself may be making forward-looking statements here. The securities regulators like it when we tell you that, remind you that you should take what we say with that in mind and do some homework. And you should check with Amex, go to their website, because we're only going to give you an overview of things today, a lot more details on their main project, Perone, and on some other projects are at Amex's website. And of course, they're a recommended company of mine and a National Investor. They have been for some time. More recently, as you've seen on this next slide here from our own disclosure statement, after I added Amex as a recommendation to my paid members of the National Investor, Amex enlisted National Investor Publishing to do various copyright and media work, of which this is one example. So you need to know that. And last but not least, I'm also happily a shareholder myself of Amex. So with that, Victor Cantori is the president and CEO of Amex, and he joins us now. Victor, nice to see you again.
Thanks for having me on. Really excited to talk about Amex in the middle of summer here.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I was a little bit late to the game with Amex in relative terms. You and I spent a fair bit of time when we last saw one another down in New Orleans a couple of years ago, and I dragged my feet a little bit, but finally got folks on board, especially with the kind of lackluster behavior for junior resource stocks generally of recent months. I think you're at a really great place right now as far as the share price, and it doesn't remotely reflect what you had. The first thing that folks should know about you, Victor, is that this is not your first rodeo. You've had your hand and involvement as an investor and as a finance guy in a number of different companies. You serve on other boards right now, I know. Give us, however, for present purposes, your view as to why Perrone specifically, because again, even though Amex has got other exploration projects, this is the big one. This is the big story and the active one right now. What was it about this besides the great zip code in Canada's Abitibi? I mean, you don't get much better than that. What else did you like about this when this first came available, this project?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One was the fact that the person running it at the time was Jacques Trottier. So this was going to be his third major discovery, his third mine that he finds. I mean, at the time, I mean, it's still not a mine. But it's on its way there. This is a deposit. And the fact that this property was also originally belonged to, which is today Glencore, which was back then Falconbridge. Agnico was on the property from 2013. It always belonged to Amex, but always belonged to Amex, meaning after Amex optioned it from Falconbridge, and then in 2013, Agnico came on the property and they optioned it for. There was a JV done, and they walked away from it in 2017. They didn't find what they were looking for. We took all that data, and I mean, it was really interesting, and we used all that data to actually make the first major discovery on the property. So there's a few things. There was the fact that majors were around, so that's usually when there's smoke, there's usually a fire. There's usually a fire around there. There was a lot of historical drilling on it, and then when you actually look at the land package, it's a really nice land package. There's two main faults that go through the property. You're looking around 15 kilometers of faults, and then there's secondary faults within the Perrone. And when you add all that up, there's like over 30 kilometers of prospective faults to go discover. So when you put those two elements together, it's a great property. Jacques Trottier has been on it for a long time. He's already discovered mines. Majors have been there. I said, you know what, this is. I brought in a technical team, and I said, this is just something that's going to need some money and make the discovery and take it to a different level.
Now, as you finished up talking there, Victor, one of the slides that we've put up is a little bit more of a close look at Perrone itself. We've shown a couple of regional maps to kind of incrementally narrow in on the project. But one of the things that's struck me is that you've had some phenomenal drill results recently. We're going to get into those. But yes, this thing, and you alluded to this when you first started your comments, I have seen so many instances, folks, where a company like this with a fresh set of eyes, with fresh management, a different way of looking things, can take something that people kind of shrugged their shoulders at, didn't care about, and turn it into a world-class project. It's not that the property changed. It's that somebody came in there with a different attitude. I was just out in South Dakota looking at a project out there, and I was floored by what was left undone over the years in the area of the old Homestake mine. I could not believe it. And there's been several companies that have tried to resurrect that area, haven't made it. One of them now I visited just might be in the process of doing it because they've got fresh eyes and fresh money. And I could talk all day, and I'm sure you could too, Victor, about how you've seen that, not just for yourself, but for other companies. But when you first got this, there was no such thing as an open pit project. You had some past work that was done, but tell us how you kind of repurposed this, starting with one zone and how it just kind of morphed into other things. And I want to lead up to Denise, because that to me
Yeah.
is, one of the more phenomenal parts of this thing recently.
Yeah, so the Denise zone was known. So the Denise zone is part of what we call the Eastern Gold Zone. So the Eastern Gold Zone is comprised of the Denise zone, and you're looking at the the high grade zone. They're pretty close together. They'll range anywhere from mostly around 20 meters apart to all the way to maybe 80 meters apart. So there were some, while they were drilling into Denise, that's when Jacques intersected the high grade zone. Now, what's really been interesting with that is that Denise was being targeted at in the 200 meter, 300 meter, like, and some holes we've done them really deep. What was really interesting that changed this whole thing around, so as we were making the discovery in the high grade zone, you're talking about, oh, look, you could have an underground ramp, you put a ramp, and and then you can go over to Denise underground. But we started drilling over at Denise. Like, it didn't make sense that Denise just started down there. It does happen sometimes where mineralization starts really deep, and we've been drilling Denise at surface now, like very, very close to surface, and we've been getting some spectacular results, just like the last ones that we reported, like 38 meters of 1.58.
Yep.
There's a slew of those. We had another one of 180 meters at 1 plus grams per ton. Now, what that changes, again, I'm not a mining engineer. I'm just gonna say, what it's our opinion of what we think is that now instead of starting an underground mine right away, by sinking a ramp in the high grade zone, now you could actually envision, and this is forward looking, but you can actually envision a pit at 200, 300 meters where it encompasses both the Denise zone and the high grade zone. So when you start putting in some of those numbers from the high grade zone with Denise for those first 200-300 meters, it's a very high grade open pit deposit.
And that was really what I was wanting to flesh out as we talked about this, because there's no shortage, folks, of places in the Abitibi and elsewhere where you can get some nice high grades underground. The economics are different, the engineering is different, obviously, but like you just said, Victor, the fact that you now have the possibility of an open pit to start with changes the economics, and it changes the whole prospect of what the pecking order would be, so to speak, for how this thing one day would be developed, whether it's by you or somebody else. And importantly, with the zip code that you're in,
Yes.
in that part of Canada, you have 1+ gram material in an open pit. That's pretty darn good.
Well, that's 1 gram plus on Denise. When you start blending,
Right.
the high grade zone, it's definitely going to go north of the 1 gram plus. So it's going to be a high grade right at open pit.
Well, absolutely. And just in recent days, you've put out more news from Drilling Deeper, one of those news releases we've got on the screen right now. And tell us where you're going over the balance of the summer with this year's drilling, Victor, as far as what you're hoping to accomplish by year end with this drill program.
Yeah, so we've put together one of the most aggressive drill programs in Canada, and I say one of. There are other companies that are doing them of this size, but it's a 300,000 meter drill program. We're getting to the end of it now. We've probably got another 70,000 meters left. What we're trying to do is what we want to do is launch a resource calculation to be delivered. We'll commission it at the end of the year, and hopefully we can deliver it in Q1 2022. So we're going to be continue aggressively drilling the Denise zone. We're going to be aggressively drilling all part of the Eastern Gold Zone on the high grade zone, going also at depth. Like we've intersected mineralization all the way down to and good high grade mineralization on the high grade zone all the way down to 1,200 meters,
Wow.
all the way down to 1,200 meters. And the long section, like if it's in our PowerPoint presentation, and I can get in with I don't want to make it too technical, but when you look at our long section, the deposit dips down at 70%, and it's pretty linear. Like it's pretty linear the way it is. Unlike sometimes when you're in underground development, you got a ramp and all of a sudden you lose the mineralization and you're chasing it. I mean, this thing looks pretty nice right now. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing as many holes as we can, 25-meter spacings, and definitely in the high grade zone, the one that's closer to surface, you're going to be seeing a repeat of high grade hits, because we're going to do some definition drilling over there. When you're doing the high grade, like in a high grade area, what you want to get is you want to get the highest top cut possible. In order to get certainty, you're going to have to drill as close as possible. So some drill holes may want 12-meter spacing. So we've hired resource modelers now that are helping us drill in the places where what would be the best, where's the best place to optimize grade and as much resource as possible.
So Victor, with all of this drilling, and especially with tight spacing, I mean, that's tighter than most any other exploration project would be, but you already know what you're sitting on, at least in general terms. You're looking to come out then early next year with a resource estimate that's not going to be, and I don't want to disparage others because a lot of people start with inferred resources, but you want to come out really with a bang next year.
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be inferred, but there's going to be indicated there also, and in the high grade zone, there may be as much as measured. I mean, we'll see what the spacing, how they that's the if you want to avoid the if you want to avoid them, like there's some hits where you see there it's 200-300 grams, 100 grams. If you don't want them to top cut you at 50 grams or 100 grams, you're going to have to drill. And again, it's not just us. It's really coming from the recommendations of the resource modelers. But yes, that's exactly what we're going to be trying to do. We want to come out with a bang, and that's why we're going to be aggressively drilling that whole area. We're also trying, we're also trying to open up new zones. I mean, we are concentrating on definition drilling. We are concentrating on bringing the resource of what we have known right now. But we do have exploration drills out there. I mean, we have 10 drills that are active throughout the year. So I mean, wow. we will be putting out news eventually on exploration. I'm talking about new exploration, new zones, and
sure.
So we will update the shareholders eventually on that.
Well, I know when I've visited with you before, and then not that long ago with Kelly Malcolm, your head, he's your VP for exploration, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
With Kelly and I the last time we spoke, he was talking a little bit about a couple zones, Great Tien and Gray Cat.
That's correct.
What can you update us on where those are concerned? Is some of this exploration drilling this season going to be on those areas as well?
Absolutely. There's going to be more drill results that are coming out from those areas, and also what we're going to be seeing is new zones. Like we've put out drill results in what we call potential new zones, and hopefully we can convert those potential new zones into new zones like the E2 zone and the 210 zone. Those have all been announced on we did put out some previous holes on them. They were pretty exciting holes, and now you can't call a zone with just a few holes. You actually have to put in quite a few holes before. And again, I don't want to confuse the story or change the story, but that area, there was a VMS mine there, for a copper rich VMS mine for a long time. We have with 10 drills, we have dedicated one drill to go look for because VMS targets are completely different from and the reason being, there is a smelt, like, so when you look at that map where we are in the Abitibi, there is a smelter in Rouen 1.5 hours away where they actually have a crusher. So if you do make a copper rich discovery, you're sending core over there. I mean, but the goal again is, when we first were talking about this story back 2-3 years ago, sure, we show all the mills around there, and now you hear me talk less about the fact that Detour is there, the Holt Holloway mine, the Westwood complex, because now what our objective is to make this a standalone. What we'd like to do is bring in such a robust enough deposit resource that you can have a standalone operation where you don't need to bring over. So at the beginning, yes, if we make a VMS discovery also, that's something that could be there. I mean, that
Right.
mine's been there for, it was mined out for I don't know, 40 or 50 years. The Normantal mine. It was quite exciting.
Wow, that is something. So yeah, that was going to be that's actually a good segue, Victor, into my next question. Anytime you've got an exploration project like this, and you're hitting Perone harder than pretty much any, I don't care what company you look at, folks, right now, it certainly is one of the largest. It's got to be, one of the top 3 or 4 that I am aware of anywhere in this hemisphere, as far as how much drilling is being done this year. And that said, it really does tantalize one when you look at what the possibilities might be, because at the end of the day, Victor, you're looking to monetize this somehow. And it's whether, a lot of times the standard operating procedure for an exploration company is that you want to get a big enough resources that one of the neighbors that's got a mill or that has depleting resources, or both, is interested and wants to make a play for you. But yeah, with all this drilling you're doing this year, coming out next year potentially with at least a good slug of indicated resources, this could be standalone. I never contemplated that as much, I guess. So as far as that goes, and leaving aside the possibility of maybe a VMS discovery of something beyond gold, or maybe including gold, what would be the process whereby you would try and build your own camp at Perone, basically bring in all the milling equipment stuff? Have you done any preliminary metallurgical work to see what kind of recovery you'd need to do?
Yeah, so we did do some metallurgical work that we actually reported it, and it's really free gold. Like it's our recovery, the full recovery at the end was like 99 plus. It was 99+%. It's quite rare to find that, but it's really free gold. So we have been doing work. We're going to start doing more and more work on it. When you look at the map, that's the one that shows the the Abitibi Greenstone Belt,
Yep.
And you look at all those, those blue lines those blue dashed lines are all where you see these yellow, these are all mines and deposits that are on it. And,
Yep.
you look at our property, and there's only one base metals mine, the Normantal mine. There's no reason why, you're in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt. This was one of the reasons that really attracted me to this project is was saying, well, how could you have all these mines on all these other deformation zones and not on this deformation zone? You look at the Sunday Lake Fault Zone, the Casa Berardi Fault Zone, and we're on the Shakopee, we're on the Shakopee. And one of the reasons why, you could ask me, okay, but why is that the case? Why is that? How come there hasn't been any, and the main reason is because there was, there's overburden there. So you don't have those prospectors walking around there and seeing exposed rock and knocking it, and there you go, you free gold in some rock. So really what it takes geophysics and drilling. That's your exploration tool, and that's where we were successful. And it's, with the hits we're getting, it looks like we found a recipe for the current discovery and for new discoveries and new zones.
Well, you certainly have. Earlier, I was putting on a couple of the recent press releases of what the assay results have been while you've been talking. You don't see numbers like that on that big a scale, really, with a lot of projects these days. So congratulations for that. Kelly has done a good job, and you've done a good job as well. So wrapping up, Victor, you said 60 or 70,000 meters or so left of the 300 that you're doing this year. So over the balance of the year, we can expect to see additional drilling results as they're available.
Absolutely. There's going to be there was a bit of a delay, and that was industry wide. It wasn't just with us. So it looks like we're going to be getting a much I hate to commit to any timing, but our lab looks like they'll be able to deliver us on a more regular basis. Like, I'm hoping we could deliver news every 2 to 3 weeks, and it looks like the lab is becoming online with us with that. So There'll be there'll be a good news flow between now and between now and the end of the year. Well, actually, just going forward. I mean, just because we finish our 300,000 meter drill program doesn't mean we're going to stop there. Even when we start the resource, you'll just continue drilling. It's you
Right.
want to build up the resource as big as you possibly can. And there's so much. So when you look at the property, just the main faults, there's 15 kilometers of main faults. We've only went on 3.5 kilometers of it. And if I add the other two secondary faults that run between the property, you're looking at 30 kilometers of faults, of
Right.
prospective faults. So there's really a lot to discover here.
That's neat. Well, it stands to reason that increasingly you're of a mind that maybe that's going to be your own operation, and there isn't going to be a need to have somebody step in because you're going to have something substantial enough for that. Well, that's neat. I mean, folks, over the balance of the year, you got drilling news come out. If it's half as good as what's come out already, it's going to be exciting. We're getting into a better place for gold now, thanks to the guy that I call Cargo Plane Jay that runs the Federal Reserve down here. And I don't know if you saw this when I commented about it the other day, Victor, but did you ever watch it was a cult classic movie down here, especially for people from the Chicago area, the Blues Brothers. Did you ever watch that?
They did.
Yeah, you got Jake is in the underground culvert there. They're trying to escape, and Carrie Fisher's got the machine gun pointed at him, and he's given all the reasons why. He stood her up at the altar. My tux didn't come back from the cleaner. It was locusts, a terrible earthquake. It wasn't my fault. We're hearing that from Jerome Powell now as to why we may never live to see the Fed reduce its balance sheet or raise interest rates the rate things are going. And that's not going to be half bad for gold. So that's becoming more and more evident. Gold has now moved back above some resistance recently as we're talking about this. So it'd be a nice be a nice gold market for you to be releasing this news into. So that's great. Yeah. Anything else we should be looking at aside from the drill results, Victor, and anticipating a resource estimate next year?
No, that's pretty much it. It's really going to be, it's all about drilling and us bringing out drilling, bringing out a resource. So you're going to have more and more results out there. And that's really what's going to excite this story.
Yeah, well, it's already exciting. The market's going to start to wake up again inevitably one of these days. And folks, don't waste time. Spend some time. Here it is on the screen again at Amex Exploration's website. You'll be seeing another profile of Amex in the update of my gold issue. This is not your father's gold market. It'll be out imminently, and we're going to link these things back and forth. And just fasten your seatbelts. I think this is going to be a great story. So Victor Vantore, President and CEO of Amex, thanks again. Good to see you. And I hope it's in person again one of these days soon.
Oh, absolutely. Soon. Absolutely.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Company Spotlight with Chris Temple. Again, if you aren't already on his mailing list, make sure to write him at chris@nationalinvestor.com and ask to join.